So welcome everybody to the December 5th, 2024 meeting of the Somerville Fair Housing Commission. Pursuant to Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, this meeting of the Commission will be conducted via remote participation. We will have an audio recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. So I'm going to formally ask the commissioners if it's okay to begin proceedings. Please say yes.
Yes.
Okay, so the meeting is called to order. Do you all have a copy of the agenda? Do you have a copy of the minutes from our October 24th meeting?
I have the minutes, but I think I neglected to print out the agenda. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Shannon, can you put the agenda up on the screen, please?
Apologies.
Yeah, give me just 1 second.
Of course. And while Shannon is doing that, I'll see if anybody wants to make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move to approve them.
Second.
Seconded by
Jane.
Jeannie.
Okay. Patrice, how do you approve of the minutes?
Okay. We're not
Yes.
hearing you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I
Yeah.
can hear you. Good.
Okay. Yes, I approve the minutes.
Okay, approved unanimously. And we'll just take a pause for a moment for Shannon to put the agenda up.
Thank
by
you,
the way,
Shannon.
Shannon is the program specialist for fair housing and inclusionary housing support for the city of Somerville. We appreciate her efforts. Shannon, can you make it a little bit larger for aging eyes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that better? Do you want it a bit bigger? I can make
A
it
little more.
larger.
A little more. Yeah,
That's
that or a
great.
little smaller
Yeah.
is fine. That's good.
All right. So
Okay.
on our standing agenda items, I'll do the Facebook page update. The Somerville Fair Housing Commission is on Facebook at Somerville Fair Housing Commission, all one word. We usually post a question of the week on Fridays and a fair housing related news article on Mondays and occasionally other posts. Since our last meeting, the post that got the most traffic was a question about if you own a two-family house and you live in it, do fair housing laws apply to you? And specifically, which I'm trying to remember what was their specific question. Oh, source of income. So, the answer is yes, that even if it's a two-family house and you own one of the house and you live in the other unit, you're still not allowed to discriminate against somebody because they're paying the rent for Section 8 with Section 8. And there are other fair housing provisions that also apply even in that situation. And we always encourage people to act by the Fair Housing Act, excuse me, whether or not they're legally exempt from doing so, because it creates a more inclusive community. So 174 people saw that article, 2 liked, commented, reacted in some way, and 6 shared it with other people. The other one that got a lot of traffic, which is a little bit surprising, was just a post that said, Happy Veterans Day, and noted that veterans are a protected class under the Fair Housing Act. 102 people saw that one reacted to it, and 7 people shared it. So this is part of our commission's mission to spread the word about what fair housing is, what it means. Commissioners, any thoughts, any questions?
Can I add something? Sorry.
Please, Shannon, go ahead.
In the last meeting, there was a question about, due to a fair housing complaint that we received, if the staff could research more about co-ops and the rules around them with regard to fair housing. So would now be a good time to share that.
That seems like it's appropriate, unless anybody objects. Let's hear it now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think you wanted to maybe use it for a question of the week in the future. Basically, co-ops have to abide by all fair housing laws. They can't select new members by excluding protected classes. Everywhere I looked, so multiple sources said the same thing. And like one quote said, without dedicated and participating members, no co-op can succeed. To gain such a group of individuals, all co-ops need to remain voluntary organizations with membership opportunities for all. They should be open to any persons who are able and willing to join, accept responsibility as part of the organization, and can use the organization's services. So basically, they have to be open to anyone, and then the people who join just need to agree to abide by the rules of the co-op. So they can't discriminate by any protected class that's state or federally protected.
Thank you. So the existing members of the co-op who are considering an applicant, they're in the position of being a landlord or a roommate who's looking for, so they have to abide by that. That's terrific to know.
Yeah. And
All right.
I'm a little behind on my part of that, which is that I wrote to the lawyers at the Greater Boston Real Estate Board about co-ops, and I asked them two different things. One was whether co-ops in Massachusetts have to do Massachusetts law and federal law, or just federal law, like a two-family house.
Right.
And the question of what does the Greater Boston Real Estate Board and realtors in general call these roommate rentals? Because our city council is calling them co-ops, and it's creating a problem. So I asked those two questions, but I haven't gotten the answer yet because it takes them like a week to turn around, and I didn't get to my notes soon enough.
Okay,
So
so
I'll
we will
report back
come
next
back
month.
to that for
Mhm.
our next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you both. Shannon, I'm going to go back to you to review calls and complaints since our last meeting.
Yeah, so we received 5 complaints since the last meeting.
Wow.
And
Oh,
I'll go through each of them briefly. So a lot of them ended up being referred out. So it's not 5 full fair housing issues that we had. The first one submitted the complaint. The person stated that they were discriminated against by their race and religion, as well as their source of income, which is a Section 8 voucher. Their unit has a rodent infestation, a mouse infestation.
Oh.
And the landlord did try, or the landlord scheduled exterminations, but the mice kept coming back. And they were looking for Boston Housing Authority. They claimed that the inspector never showed up, and the inspector said that they did. So there was a bit of a dispute there. What I recommended is, first of all, I let them know that they definitely can file a complaint with either the Attorney General or with MCAD if they want to. But they were looking for a more immediate solution. So I said what they should probably do is first go to ISD and get an ISD citation.
And
so
just in case there are people who
Okay.
are currently or in the future viewing this proceeding, let's just explain acronyms. ISD is the Inspectional Services Division, correct?
Yes, sorry about that. So
Thank
I
you.
recommended they go to the Inspectional Services Department, so that if there is an issue, they can issue a citation so that the landlord, has to clear that up. Because just because they do exterminate the unit doesn't mean that they're free and clear. The issue has to actually be rectified. So ISD did end up issuing a citation there. And the tenant got back to me to let me know that. The next person, the next complaint was emailed directly to myself, the Director of Housing, Mike Floney, and to the mayor's office. It was a complaint about an OHS staff member. This is not a fair housing issue because it doesn't have to do with being in housing. The person was not discriminated against in terms of entering housing. So it was referred to the staff members, supervisors, and the director of housing and the mayor's office agreed that this was the right course of action. The next one was another inspectional services department referral. It was someone who put in a fair housing complaint, but they were just looking for who is the right person to ask about a maggot infestation in their unit. I let them know that if they do feel like they're being treated unfairly or in a discriminatory manner, then they can file a complaint. But they were more looking to be referred to the right department, which was ISD. The next one was an individual who is living in a Somerville Housing Authority unit and needs reasonable modifications to their unit. And they had mentioned it back in May, but they said that they hadn't had any changes made. They also were looking to maybe move into an accessible unit on the first floor. They had a doctor's note. So I just had them email the property manager and Shannon Bennett at Somerville Housing Authority. They weren't interested in filing a fair housing complaint with MCAD at this time. They just wanted to see how they could sort of get their modifications in their unit. So I helped them draft an email to send to the manager so that it was clear what exactly they wanted. And then I don't have any follow-up on that because that happened earlier this week. And then the final one, I don't have any follow-up on this because this person submitted an OHS intake and then forwarded it to us, but it does look like it could be a fair housing complaint. It's a constituent who's being denied an apartment that they were previously accepted to because their raft funding was delayed. And the delay was due to the property manager not providing all documentation right away. So I did let them know, and I'll follow up again if they don't respond to me by the end of today or tomorrow, that, they can follow up with me and learn more. And I need to learn more about the situation, but it does sound like a fair housing complaint that we might need to go a little bit further on. So that's what I have. Does anyone have any questions on any of those? I know that was a lot.
No, it's really good work for you to be able to sort out what is fair housing and what is just bad housing.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the biggest challenge for people in your position. And we've heard it from other people too. So kudos.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, landlord-tenant dispute things that could be fair housing and maybe couldn't. But it's helpful to call them and get all the information than just the intake form.
So one thing I noticed, kind of along the same line as Commissioner Rona, there's a lot of folks out there who basically need a traffic cop to help them figure out which route to take to get the help that they need. And, the fact that, Shannon, that you're able to, you have the time and you're knowledgeable enough to direct people either to inspectional services or Office of Housing Stability, which is OHS, or say this is a potential fair housing complaint and keep it on your desk. That's a real boon. But it does mean, and we know that Somerville is a somewhat transient city. So people who learn about these issues, their next apartment may be somewhere else, and somebody has just moved in, and the educational work that you did last year doesn't mean anything to them because they haven't heard it. But it's still worth doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I try, even when it's not a fair housing issue, to just let them know that if they are experiencing fair housing, what that is, and they can come to us in the future.
Janine, please.
Just a quick question about that first complaint about the rodents in the apartment. Was that person satisfied after ISD issued that citation, or did they still want to I know it's not strictly fair housing, but I was curious about that one, just out of personal curiosity, I guess, about what someone would do after that if it's still happening.
Yeah. It was so it is mice. And at first, I was a little worried that because it's mice and not rats, that it wouldn't be addressed as quickly, but it was a big issue, like a very big issue. So their lease is coming to an end somewhat soon. But I think for them, a lot of it was about like they shouldn't be forced to live in substandard housing for any amount of time. So I think that having the ISD citation did help. I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but she like when I got the follow-up email, I had followed up with her maybe 3 weeks ago and I hadn't heard anything. And then I got her follow-up yesterday. So it seemed like things had moved in the right direction for her.
Thank you.
Patrice, any comments or thoughts?
No comments at this time.
Okay, just making sure. All right, so we're going to stay with Shannon. Shannon, there are a couple of annual reports about fair housing and related issues that the city has to submit. Tell us about the progress.
Yeah, so for the first one, for the fiscal year 24 annual report, Lisa and I are meeting next week to start on that. So there's no update since the last meeting there. There is an update on the fiscal year 23 annual report. At the last meeting, it had gone to City Council, but City Council referred it to the Housing Community Development Committee. And I believe that the housing director, Mike Filoni, was at that meeting, as well as Lisa Davidson. And so the Housing Community Development Committee pushed it to a later meeting. And I think that they're going to invite me to come speak at that meeting on behalf of it. So when that happens, I will let you know. Hopefully it will be before next month. So that we can get it approved by City Council or move back to City Council so that it can be approved. But I don't have a time frame on that because they haven't contacted me yet.
Is that the committee that Councilor Kristen Straso chairs, or has that changed since last year?
I'm not sure which counselors are on the committee. I can check in with that.
No, not a big deal. Just curious. Anybody else have any thoughts or questions about the annual reports? Seeing none. Okay, so let's go on. One of the big topics for our commission always is education. We don't, and I'm saying this for the public, we don't have much in the way of a budget, and we're very happy to have Shannon's staff support. And we don't do enforcement of fair housing in-house. There was already a reference to referring things to either the Mass Commission Against Discrimination or other bodies to investigate and enforce. So education is really at the center of this commission's mission. So we have on our agenda the first such event is thinking about nationwide. April is Fair Housing Month, and that has been true for a long time. And we have done various things to mark that in Somerville. So who has the planning report on that? There was a subcommittee created last time to work on this.
I don't know what exactly the subcommittee was, but there were a couple of tasks. Patrice and I were going to talk to Racial Justice, but we haven't got our calendars straight yet. And the application for a grant that was done last year by me and Hannah Lay, I updated it and sent it back to Shannon just yesterday. So that's ready to get one paragraph put in by Shannon and sent out again to see whether MAPS has somebody for us this time around. So it's half done.
And so that's a grant proposal to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. And it's to help fund what?
It's not funding, it's staff hours. So MAPS has community development communications staff that can help us. Let me see if that's somebody I have to talk to. I'll be right back.
Patrice, I know your day job is at MAPC. Can you tell us any more about the process there?
Yes, well, I can talk a little bit about the technical assistance program, which, like Rona had stated, it is in regard to staff time. And the staff would be assisting us in achieving our goal of having this event and making the connections to like have the event. So it's not per se a grant, but it's more like labor. And it has to go through a certain amount of approvals, and it has to be submitted by, I want to say, an executive of Somerville.
Yeah, and we know who the executive is. I've forgotten who it is, but whoever it was last year can do it again.
It's Tom Galligani.
Yeah, it's Tom. Okay.
So I will, I'm gonna email him today to see if we can get another letter from him that says the same thing. The deadline this year is December, shoot, I just had it up. December 13th is the initial deadline for projects. So I'll try to get him to get it back before then.
Yeah. And this is sort of a retroactive kudo, because once Hannah Lay created the wheel, it was pretty easy to update it.
And Hannah Steinhardt was the person who held the position that Shannon holds before her. So that's what whom we're giving the kudos to.
Sorry, I got dropped off because someone called my cell phone and it dropped my Zoom.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
These
but
things happen.
you're back.
I'm back, and Dennis, thank you for expanding upon the staff member who had helped last time filling out the TAP application. And I think that was when I had cut out. So yes, and Rona, you may have missed it, but I just explained that TAP application is technical assistance program, and it's basically based on like labor, not necessarily a grant per se. And we're hoping that this person could come in and help us with our event, and also help us make connections to help us with our event, and maybe also connections that help us in other ways too. So I'm excited to see what happens with this TAP application. And also, I'm not sure as to when the deadline is per se, and to when decisions will be made. So I'm not completely sure.
Yeah, and my sense is we'll go through the process as it's on the website, and it hasn't changed since last year. So it's pretty light lifting to try again. And last year somebody beat us out for it, so that's how it goes.
So would someone like to review the April is Fair Housing Month activities that we did do last year?
Last year we did we just did the book group. So we did 2 meetings to discuss sort of a book / the video summary of it. So the book is called The Color of Law. That's by Richard Rothstein. And it's a detailed history of how housing and housing discrimination and mortgage discrimination created sort of a permanent underclass for Black and brown people in this country, and how the large amount of money that was given to infrastructure in the 50s after World War II that built roads and gave GI mortgages to people and gave education to people, was structurally set up to exclude Black and brown people. So the middle class that was created in the 50s from this money was overwhelmingly white. And he sort of explains how that happened in a non-judgmental way, that this is what happened. And this is why we're in the position we're in now. So that's what the book is about. And then there's a 22-minute short film, which is animated and actually very easy to swallow, which summarizes the biggest points of this and a couple of the stories from within the book. So we generally do one live meeting and one Zoom meeting to discuss the book and or the video. And we've been doing it, I think we've already done it 3, maybe 4 times. And that's been sort of our standard thing. So that's what we have been doing. And what we want to do is stuff that's a little broader. And a little bit
When did we
more.
have Todd Kaplan come? Wasn't that during Fair Housing Month
Yeah,
too?
that was last year, right?
Okay.
We had Todd Kaplan come you're right about that. I didn't check my notes. Yeah, last year we also had Todd Kaplan come to talk about credit scores and how the credit, sort of the AI algorithm credit score searching is cutting people off arbitrarily at a certain point without any mitigating circumstances. And it's another situation where equity doesn't equal equality, or equality doesn't equal equity, because people who are just cut off because their credit score is, 620, may have a reason why they're a better credit risk than people who have a 640. Because there's been study after study that shows there's no correlation between credit score and people who pay their rent. When people have credit problems, it's usually because they're not paying their credit cards or loans or something like that, and they're still paying their rent.
They may be not paying their credit card in order to pay their rent.
In order to pay the rent, right. So he sort of talked about that, and that actually got a pretty good crowd. Because
I'll just mention that Todd Kaplan is an attorney with Greater Boston Legal Services and a longtime resident of Somerville. Yeah. So, and I'll say also for historical context that years before that, one of the things the Fair Housing Commission used to do was a Fair Housing Commission poster contest for students in the Somerville schools. And, that was a lot of fun, but we decided that it didn't reach as many people as we wanted to. And we're continuing this discussion. I think is about continuing to find more ways to reach out to more and more people. And commissioners, you probably saw this already, but I'm just going to mention that Shannon sent us copies of materials created for Fair Housing Month last year. She sent that to us yesterday afternoon, so we have those to refer to. And also, you may not have seen this, but earlier today, Shannon sent out an article that I happened to see by Richard Rothstein about how he came to write the book. And he was originally studying educational inequities, which, at one point he says people thought it was about lazy or prejudiced teachers. And then he said, no, it was about the unequal burdens that the students had to bear. And then he said, but that looking at it individually that way misses the forest for the trees. It's really about the neighborhood and things like lead and pollution and lack of food and so if you're talking about neighborhoods, you're talking about housing and housing segregation and that's the background. So it's like a 3-page article you folks may find interesting. So anyway, what are some other thoughts about Fair Housing Month? Yeah, Patrice, go right ahead.
Okay, so I know we are going to have the event where we expand upon like the color of law and hopefully working with racial justice Somerville. But I'm not sure if we got to necessarily think about what else we may want to do, because I feel like the credits for event that happened last year seemed to be a big hit, and I wonder if we could do it again this year. I wonder what else we could do. That's it. I'm done. I'm done speaking for right now.
Janine's got her hand up.
Yes, go ahead, Janine, please.
So I was just going to say that I kind of like the poster idea, even if it didn't get a lot of exposure. And I'm wondering if there's a way to like, it might be too much of a heavy lift, but if we like opened it up to different categories, like an adult one, a teen one, an elementary school one. And I mean, just to, that would increase the reach at least. But also I remember seeing the posters up on the wall, on the stairs up on City Hall, and I kind of liked it. And I don't know if it's just me and maybe I'm just goofy, but I'd like some feedback on that because I think it was kind of cool.
It was really cute, and having them up in City Hall was really cute and probably got some attention. But the heavy lifting on that procedure was getting teachers buy-in. And at that time, our staff person was Vicky Wiry, who was well hooked into the school system. So she was able to get 2 or 3 teachers who would give up a couple hours of class time for this.
Yeah, got it.
So that's the big issue. Although we could try it low freight. I'm just talking out of the back of my head here. We could try it low freight and just have like flyers in the library and just do it. And the other thing was that because we have no budget, we had to go begging to Banks and the pizza joint.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
And that's just really hard.
Yeah.
So we had Peeny's, and I will plug Peeny's because they were a very good business citizen of this city. Peeny's used to give us half off for the pizza because the reward for the class that had the #1 poster was a pizza party.
Oh, cool. That's
so Peeny's gave us half price pizza.
Nice.
And then we bought, juice and seltzer and stuff like that. So, it came out of our pocket, but the big cost would be, the 25 pizzas that we got.
Yeah.
It wasn't that much because it was a class of 30. So it's probably like 6 pizzas or something, 5 or 6. But stuff like that is, those are the pieces of it. So I think next month we have to think about whether we want to do that. Because we wouldn't do a pizza party because it's not an elementary school classroom, but we would still need to have some kind of cash prize.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'd have to get a bank to okay it. So, I mean, it could, somebody could rig it and say, well, nobody's put in any, so I'll put in a poster and then I'm going to win $100. So we'd have to think on it, but it was terribly cute.
I said, I liked walking into City Hall and seeing like something that was not professional, but like relevant to the community and
Mhm.
something that, you know, came from the schools. I liked that, but yeah, it would definitely require some thinking for sure. I hadn't thought that out in terms of
Yeah.
the logistic stuff and getting people on board. Yeah, that would be something.
Yes. Right. So what we did back in the day, what we did was we would go into the elementary school classrooms. So there were 2 third grades and 2 first grades, or 2
cool.
second and fourth. I don't remember, but they were 2 years apart. And we would read a book. There's a book called A Pig is Moving In. And it's a cartoon graphic where all the animals are gossiping about this pig moving in. And that he like left dirt in the hallway, and he they had all these complaints about him as he was moving in. And then he invited them up to tea, and everything that they thought was bad about him was in the service of doing lovely things. So, it was sort of don't be prejudiced on a elementary school level. It's a very cute book. So we would go read the book and then have a discussion about what prejudice is and how if you don't like someone on first impression, how you can give him, a better shake. And then they did the posters with the teachers. So the teachers did the heavy lifting. So you have to get buy-in.
Got it.
And then we all went to the mayor's office and got a photo op with Mayor Joe.
Of course.
Yes. That goes without saying in Somerville at that time.
Yeah.
So Joe would get a picture of all the posters and all the cute kids, and it would run in the Somerville Journal, and everybody would be happy. So that's what we used to do. So yeah, the question would be, I guess, next month, maybe make an agenda item about, is there an easy way to streamline this?
Mm-hmm.
And the hardest thing will be, hitting up the local banks for some money. And they might do it.
So we're definitely going to keep April as Fair Housing Month on the agenda,
Mm-hmm.
at least through April and probably May for recap. But yeah, Shannon, if you can specifically, make sure that we revisit that question. Anybody have any other thoughts about Fair Housing Month before we look at other items on the agenda? Seeing none. I know we'd also been talking about doing tabling at various events. Shannon, are you in a position to recap where we are with that?
The 2 things from the last agenda that I wanted to bring back up are, first, Lisa and the admin assistant for housing and for OHS have been looking at tent prices. So we do have some pricing. It's about $430. And I think they're seeing if they can do it. But it looks likely. So we'll have a tent so that we're able to stay out in the sunlight. And then the other thing was with the Elections Commission. I know it came up that we could potentially table on election day. So I spoke with the admin of the Elections Commission, and she wasn't sure. And she referred me over to the chair, and he hasn't gotten back to me yet. So once he does, I'll update everyone on that.
Thank you. Any questions for Shannon? Yes, Janine.
I just noticed that in the minutes that I said I would do something and I didn't. So I made myself a note to do it for the next time. I think it was just to follow up on if we were having any events that would make sense for the commission to attend. So I'll be sure to follow up on that for next time.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And what Shannon mentioned also brings up the fact that, we just finished a national election, but Somerville municipal elections are in the odd numbered years. And Patrice has led the way mostly with some assistance from me on quizzing, sending out a questionnaire to both incumbent and challenger candidates for mayor and city council, to get them thinking about fair housing issues, but also to be able to get their responses about them. And in the past, we've been fairly successful in having those things, well, certainly on the city's website, but also in some of the local journalists' sites too. So that's something that is not an immediate issue, but let me just flag it for later in 2025. The biggest election in Somerville is on the municipal level is usually the primary election in September. So we'll want to plan to have the questionnaire out, back, and tabulated and published before then. Patrice, anything you want to add about that?
No, but it's now back on my radar, and now I'm thinking about when we should really start doing the reach out for that, and when will we know to do the reach out for that?
Well, and I can say partly we'll need to find out when is the last day for candidates to register for the election, because before then we won't know who the candidates are, and we don't want to play favorites. I mean, conceivably we could send it to the incumbents, but the incumbents don't always run for re-election. So it's something to be considered.
And would we also compose new questions or expand upon it? Because I remember last year we had 2 sets of questions, questions for folks who were incumbents and questions for folks who may not have had a chance to answer the first time because they're either new or they did not get a chance to answer beforehand. Did we want to continue with that? Or if there is an incumbent, would we change questions, or would we expand upon questions? And I think we would need to decide before candidates start registering, potential candidates register, to show impartiality.
So Shannon, if you don't mind, can we ask you just to look up? I don't even know if this changes from one election year to the next, but can you look up either when the registration is due, or when it was due back in 2023, so we can use that as a best approximation?
Yeah,
Thank you so much. We rely on you quite a bit, and thanks so much. So I'll just remind people, there is a spreadsheet to add events to that when we might want to have a table. So please feel free to add to that spreadsheet, and also please feel free to volunteer. I know Shannon helped out a little bit with that, Lisa quite a bit, and Commissioner Rona and I at Artbeat, and that got quite a lot of attention. So let's see what we can do with that. So the other part on our agenda about education is our online education and outreach. We've already talked about the Facebook page, and I know that we're waiting for Commissioner appointee Kay Memo to be sworn in and be able to join us for a full discussion of that. But if anybody has any thoughts about online stuff today, please feel free to take a moment to bring that up. Okay, so let's just hold off on that and we'll get back to it with or without Kay. I think what's important to note is that Facebook reaches a certain demographic, and there are other demographics we want to reach.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
When you were advertising for April Fair Housing Month last year, were you able to have the city's Instagram or city Facebook page post about the events?
We weren't on it.
Do you know if we were not allowed or if we potentially could do
I
that?
just know we weren't on it. I don't know if we even thought about it.
Okay. I can reach
know-
out and see through media because inclusionary posts new inclusionary events on there,
Mhm.
or not events, but inclusionary opportunities on there.
It's
So
right.
maybe that can just expand our outreach like a little bit off of Facebook and onto Instagram or something like that, Twitter.
Mhm.
That wouldn't be huge, but just for
Mhm.
April, it could help.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
again, every year we've had trouble with, like last year, I thought, well, we had all the flyers translated. It would just be a matter of changing the dates. And then we still didn't get the flyers really soon enough. So I feel, I feel strongly that we need to do that early, whether or not we have the TAP people.
Okay.
Once we have the dates set, I think we need to get the flyers. And I still didn't quite understand why there was a lot of discussion about what seemed like a simple change, but the people who are translating seemed to feel it was important.
Okay. Yeah. It should only take 2 weeks to get translations, but you
Mhm.
never know with these things.
Okay. And in terms of online education and outreach, some of the stuff we're talking about now could become fair housing question of the week posts. And I think we probably need to do a little bit more of that. Even a question as basic as, if I have mice in my apartment, is it a fair housing question? And the answer is no, that's a inspectional services question. And we can do
Okay,
it
but
without repeating something that just happened, but we can mention a different vermin.
okay, but I want to say to everybody, please think of, put your thinking caps on and send possible fair housing questions of the week to me, and I will put them into the rotation. And I will just add to what Commissioner Rona said, that in and of itself, that is not a fair housing issue. But if the person says, well, my neighbors are getting treatment that I'm not getting, and I suspect it's because of my race or my gender or my language or what because I'm a veteran, whatever, then that becomes a fair housing issue. And that's the kind of nuance that I know was in the quiz that the commission used at the table at Artbeat. And we could definitely also use the Facebook Fair Housing Question of the Week to get into stuff like that. So again, the bottom line is Commissioners Janine, Rona, Patrice, and staff, please feel free if you've got stuff that you think the public wants to know and hasn't sent to us, send it to me and I'll formulate it and get it out there. So we're up to kind of the wrapping up a next steps sort of stage of the agenda. I want to note, and I talked about this with Shannon offline, some of us who have been on the commission for a while, well, I think all of us now have been on the commission for a while. We probably all got an email and a letter from the mayor's office saying, whereas earlier in her term of office, the focus was on filling some of the vacant positions, now getting to those of us who have been serving without being reappointed for quite a while, there will be a process. And For those of us who've been on for a while, the process will include inviting other people to apply to make sure that there's, good participation from the community in these commissions. I want to say, stepping out of the chair for a moment and speaking just for myself, I want to say that I think the city government routinely overestimates the interest in being on these commissions and underestimates the problem that is created when we set up barriers to people participating on the commission. We need to make this as easy as possible. We are not, I know that some of the rules that apply to us are some of the same rules that apply to employees, but we are not employees. We are volunteers. We spend our own time and money sometimes on this, and we are here to advise the city and to provide expertise and to provide a more direct voice of the will of the people. And yes, it should be as diverse and as representative as possible, but you're going in the opposite direction of getting diversity and representation when you make it more difficult for people to apply. So that's my little rant. And Janine, did you want to say something about that? I saw you had your hand up, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, only that I have to run because I scheduled a participant meeting right at 4. So I'm sorry about that. That wasn't very wise, but I will send something to Shannon after that she can share with the group about that very issue. Thank you for raising it. Appreciate it.
Sure. Okay. So let's just say that the next meeting is scheduled for 3 p.m. on January 2nd, 2025. And Shannon, I think you had an annual meeting calendar. Is it possible to stop sharing the agenda and share the annual meeting calendar that you'd put together?
Yes, let me do that so we can look at it.
Wednesday.
Okay, can you see it now or no?
Can see it, and if you could make it just a little bit
Yes.
bigger, that would be great. Great, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I just checked the Jewish holidays. It's not going to be a problem.
You mean the fall holidays?
Yeah, the fall holidays.
Okay, what about Pesach?
Oh, I didn't check that. Let me check that.
I don't think it will fall on any Jewish holidays. I looked through the year.
Thank you. We're just double checking.
Yeah, we always
And-
check. I mean, our calendars are wonky, so.
And I think I can
April
speak
12th
knowledgeably. April 12th. So good. So
is when
it
it
avoids
starts.
that. And I don't think the December one is a problem because Hanukkah, even though it's a very celebratory and festive holiday, it's
Yeah.
not the kind of thing that demands people abstain from work or
Or
it's gonna
go
have
home
nothing-
for it, right?
Yeah, I won't be like cooking all day that day or in synagogue all day or whatever. So I think I can answer that and say it does not need to be removed. I can also say, and I think other commissioners will back me up on this, that at times we have skipped either the August meeting or the December meeting, depending on what our workload was and, and what people's travel schedules were and so forth. But what do people think about this list as at least a tentative 2025 calendar?
Do you want me to switch the December one to be December 18th then? That will fall during Hanukkah, but
Yeah, that's okay.
okay.
Unless
That would be
it's too
fine,
close
and
to
that-
Christmas
that-
for people.
No, it shouldn't be.
Okay.
And Patrice, you wanted to say,
Oh, I just wanted to say I approve the calendar.
Rona, what do you think?
I'm fine with December 18th.
Okay, and nobody sees a problem with any of the other dates
No.
as constituted.
No, all the holidays in which would interfere with, where observance would interfere with this meeting are not falling that time of the month. So we're good.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, wait a minute. Right. Rosh Hashanah falls before
It's
this,
the day before. So I
Right,
can
the-
swap that one too, if you want. That should be, it's currently
And-
set for September 25th, but we could move it.
no, that should be okay. So, yeah, Rosh Hashanah is, actually, let me check that again. Just because I clicked out of it quickly. I mean, we don't travel, so it doesn't affect us that much, but, yeah, it's the 23rd and 24th, and this meeting's on the 25th. That shouldn't be a problem.
right. And I just for curiosity's sake, checked when Ramadan is in 2025, and it's basically the month of March. It's February 28th through March 29. But even if we have any Muslim members of the commission, which I don't know, you know, I think that as long as, I mean, that time of year, the sun is not going down when we meet, so they would still be fasting, and we would not be preventing them from getting to break the fast iftar dinner. So I think that would be okay, but let's leave it with people's permissions. Let's leave it on there, and as Shannon rightly put at the top, draft subject to change by the the convenience of the commission. And I just want to say for the public that Shannon and the city in general always make sure that the dates and times of these meetings are publicly posted well in advance. So I think we've approved this for now.
Did we lose Janine?
Anybody? We did lose Janine. She
Okay.
went to her 4:00 meeting.
Okay.
So, any other business that we want to take care of today?
Mhm.
All right. Well, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Patrice so moves. Rona
Okay,
seconds.
I'll okay it.
I'll make it unanimous. See
Okay,
you
it's
next year.
4:04. Okay, y'all.
Thanks. once
Happy
again
Mary,
to
y'all.
Shannon.